What happens inside us when we look at a woman and feel both enchantment and an inexplicable emptiness at the same time? Why is it that in so many relationships, some men feel like they get everything, except true love? Think about it now. Have you ever been with someone who said all the right words, made all the perfect gestures of affection, but something inside you remained unsatisfied? As if that giving was just the surface of a feeling that never fully revealed itself. Subscribe to the channel and leave a like to get access to more stories like this. This is the starting point of our journey. We're not here to point fingers or create villains, quite the opposite. We're going to dismantle, layer by layer, the deep psychic mechanisms that push some women to offer presence, obedience, even eroticism, while at their core, they are incapable of genuinely loving. Why does this happen? What's behind this behavior that to many seems like just coldness, manipulation, or self-interest? Over the next few minutes, you'll discover that behind every rehearsed gesture, every controlled smile, and every automatic acceptance, there can be an entire universe of unconscious strategies, emotional defenses, and old wounds. Apparent feminine love is the tip of the iceberg of complex mechanisms, invisible to the eye but devastating to feelings. Have you ever questioned how many times you were attracted to an image and not an essence? And more importantly, could it be that you've fallen in love so many times only with the reflection of your own unmet needs, your desires, and your projections? Before we move on to the next parts of this journey, I want to invite you to dive into this topic wholeheartedly. Share in the comments. Have you ever been in a relationship where you felt you received everything but true love? Subscribe, leave a like, and share your pains and learnings. After all, millions of us are trying to decipher the same mystery. Why do we miss real love, even when everything seems perfect? Imagine a scenario, a relationship where the woman seems flawless. She does everything right, fulfills desires, doesn't complain, is always available. However, she lacks that mysterious sparkle, that spark of authentic emotional surrender. The nagging question, why would someone give so much without truly involving their heart? The answer might lie in the fundamental difference between genuine love and calculating attachment. True love is risky. It demands surrender, vulnerability, and a willingness to lose yourself a little in the other's emotion. Calculating attachment, on the other hand, is an adaptive response. It's safe, risk-free. It arises from old pains, losses, rejections, and builds an emotional shield where enough is given to ensure acceptance, but never enough to get lost. In many cases, this behavior is learned. Women who were taught to seek approval through behavior, not through feeling. They grow up hearing that being good guarantees affection, that loving is a risk, that obedience is admirable, and they internalize the logic of conditional love. In other situations, this posture stems from the fear of abandonment. Giving without love is an unconscious strategy to avoid conflicts and losses. A woman molds herself to the other's desire, but hides her essence, fearing that if she shows who she truly is, she will be rejected. Psychologically, we're talking about an emotional survival mechanism, a dance between what is offered to the world and what is protected intimately. The price? Shallow relationships, where the feeling of being served never transforms into the experience of being loved. Pause for a moment and reflect. Have you noticed such patterns in close relationships? Have you ever felt that harmony came, not from spontaneity, but from a secret script of needs and rewards? What happens when we try to love someone who only knows how to fulfill, but never truly gives themselves? Let's pause and dig deeper. How do we differentiate true love from a strategic attachment that mimics romance? Genuine love is visceral, chaotic, sometimes even uncomfortable. It manifests in moments of vulnerability, crises, involuntary smiles, and unexpected tears. To truly love is to risk rejection, to show your ugliest parts and still hope for the other's acceptance. Calculating attachment, in contrast, is rational, cold, meticulous. It's an exchange based on expectations and returns. I give because I need the other person to stay. I obey because I fear being abandoned. I offer affection to ensure calm and stability. In psychologically complex contexts, calculating attachment can be mistaken for love, especially when the person has been socialized to please, to adapt, and to silence their own needs for the sake of the relationship. Many women have been conditioned throughout life to hide authentic feelings and to wear the persona of the ideal partner, even if they don't truly feel a connection with their partner. And men bear the burden of interpreting signals, confusing presence with commitment, comfort with love, sex with true connection. Then comes the disillusionment. She's here, says she wants me, but I feel like I don't truly belong in her life. We arrive at a painful revelation. The most common issue isn't a conscious lack of love, but an unconscious inability to love. I can't love isn't a voluntary renunciation. It's a blockage, trauma, a repetition of ancestral pains. After all, how can one feel authentic intimacy if, since forever, survival has depended on masks, adaptation, and emotional hiding? I ask you again, what hurts more, being openly rejected, or feeling like you're in a relationship without depth, receiving a presence that never fully exposes itself? Between loving and being loved, which of the two pains have you experienced? We've reached one of the cruelest paradoxes of relationships. Why are so many men disappointed to discover, too late, that they fell in love not with a woman, but with the reflection of their own unmet needs and fantasies? The human psyche is a master of illusions. Carl Jung teaches us that we project onto others what we wish to find within ourselves. We fall in love, almost always, with our own masked image of desire and ideal of completeness. Many women, incapable of loving wholeheartedly, end up functioning as blank canvases, and men, eager for affection, paint their dreams of emotional perfection onto them. If you love what you expect her to be and not who she is, you are condemned to disappointment. The more needy you are, the greater your tendency to ignore the signs of veiled coldness, controlled giving, programmed gestures. Desire blinds, absence hurts, projection deludes. Women who obey too much, who give too much, but never truly show themselves, function as mirrors of others' needs. The relationship becomes a choreography of correct gestures, but without emotional truth. It's common that, when the relationship ends, the man wakes up to the fact that he didn't actually know his partner. He only knew the persona, the mask, the projected image. The greater drama is that, while both remain trapped in the game of expectations and projections, neither experiences authenticity. The boyfriend misses love. The woman feels relief from not having to expose herself, and both sink into loneliness together. Are you willing to confront your own illusions? Are you prepared to look at your partner and, for the first time, see beyond appearances and expectations? The true encounter begins when the theater ends and real people emerge, with their pains, fears, and contradictions. Have you ever heard of the animus? In Carl Jung's analytical psychology, the animus represents the masculine energy within the female unconscious, that inner force that influences how a woman relates to the world, especially concerning love and emotional connection. But what happens when this animus is wounded? Imagine a woman whose inner masculine energy has been marked by trauma, rejections, or even the absence of healthy paternal or masculine figures in her life. This wound creates a deep shadow, a fissure that prevents the authentic expression of love. The wounded animus transforms the woman into someone who unconsciously uses the man around her as a tool for survival, rather than a source of true exchange. This wound is not visible. It's like a hidden code in her behavior. While the man expects to receive affection, security, and a love that embraces, the woman responds functionally. She obeys, she gives, but without connecting with her own vulnerability. The wounded animus creates a barrier in her heart, an automatic mechanism to protect her essence from new hurts. Have you ever thought about how some feminine attitudes throughout relationships seem guided by emotional calculation without the woman even being fully aware? This scenario doesn't stem from malice, but from an internal defense system. It's an unconscious way to ensure that, despite suffering, emotional survival is secured. A wounded animus doesn't exactly destroy the woman, but it immobilizes her capacity to love genuinely. This complex acts like an emotional virus that wants to be cured but perpetuates itself because carrying the pain of the past is, in many aspects, more comfortable than risking real vulnerability. The wounded animus generates a dynamic in which the man becomes, for her, a kind of instrument to fill voids, not a partner to connect with. This imbalanced relationship becomes a cycle where no one truly feels loved. Could it be that this wounded animus exists within you, or someone you know? And if it does, how can one begin to repair this wound that prevents not only the woman but also the man from experiencing love in its most genuine form? This is the mystery we will explore. The blind spot of the psyche, where internal trauma projects dynamics that seem superficial but carry immense weight. If the wounded animus speaks of damaged internal masculine energy, the feminine shadow is that obscure side that a woman shows, unconsciously, in the realm of relationships. The shadow, according to Jung, is the set of repressed aspects of the personality, what is hidden to fit the persona of the woman the world expects. Have you seen women who, despite appearing delicate and affectionate, carry an unconscious emotional storm within them? This storm manifests in attitudes that confuse the partner, veiled manipulations, subtle emotional blackmail, even involuntary cruelty that leaves the man perplexed. These behaviors, though painful, are not inherently bad. They are part of the unconscious trying to protect itself, seeking an internal balance that it often doesn't find. The feminine shadow creates a complex psychological game where genuine love is sabotaged because the woman cannot integrate these hidden parts of herself. It's as if an inner voice says, "I can't expose myself because that puts me at risk." That's why certain actions seem to contradict the desire for love. Manipulation, for example, is not a conscious act of domination, but an unconscious strategy to avoid abandonment, to test the partner's loyalty, to protect herself from rejection. That's why there's a feeling that in some relationships, what should be an exchange turns into a silent, non-verbal battle between light and shadow. The woman who shows herself is a mask, and the shadow twists the backstage, pulling the strings that move emotions, often wildly and confusingly. Imagine a board where the moves seem random, but are actually linked to unhealed wounds of the psyche. The feminine shadow is not an enemy, but a part of the woman that needs to be recognized and integrated so that love moves from the stage of obligation and manipulation and transforms into sincere surrender. The lingering question is, do you know how to recognize and deal with the shadow, whether in your partner, yourself, or those close to you? After all, to what extent does this hidden face influence our choices and make it difficult to find genuine love? If the wounded animus and the feminine shadow create blockages in the capacity to love, the mother complex is one of the main roots of this psychic functioning. But what exactly is the mother complex? It's that deep, almost invisible dynamic where the relationship with the mother or with the maternal figure is loaded with pride, pain, envy, dependence, or even resentment. In some women, this relationship never matures. The daughter remains trapped at an infantile level, repeating behavioral patterns that revolve around the constant attempt to please and at the same time compete or rebel. It's the phenomenon of the eternal daughter who never breaks the symbolic bond with the devouring mother, that presence in life that consciously or unconsciously demands psychological fusion. In the impact of this dynamic, the partner's space is suffocated because the woman, even unconsciously, reserves the emotional center to mitigate her complicated relationship with her mother. Such a relationship creates a minefield of impossible expectations and dysfunctional patterns that replicate within the couple. The woman often ends up asking her partner not for love, but for a substitution of the maternal figure, meaning that he occupies a dual role that the man cannot carry, being lover, friend, and mother all at once. It's a burden few can bear. This never-spoken wound is one of the ones that most contaminates love because it nullifies the uniqueness of each individual within the relationship. The man feels he lives in a relationship of unequal exchange. The woman sees herself as a victim of the relationship, and both remain trapped in a cycle of dissatisfaction and guilt. There's something powerful in understanding how the past and primordial relationships shape the present. If the wound of the mother complex goes beyond consciousness, what can be done to break this pattern and allow love to manifest more freely, authentically, and lightly? Reflect. How present is this veiled maternal influence in your relationships? How much of this weight do you carry, consciously or unconsciously? Imagine finding someone who seems perfect, an impeccable smile, sweet words, behavior aligned with your expectations. However, over time, that image begins to seem superficial, empty, an illusion that doesn't match the person's true essence. This is the tragedy of the persona. According to Carl Jung, the persona is that social mask we wear to fit into roles, please others, and avoid conflict. For many women, the persona is the shield that protects a vulnerable, wounded heart. Behind it, legitimate emotions are hidden, deep experiences stifled. When love happens with the persona, with the mask, the partner is, in reality, relating to a ghost. The real woman, with all her pains, contradictions, and richness, remains invisible, necessarily repressed so that the show can go on. It's as if the man loves an idea, a project, or a character. The relationship becomes an artificial construct where emotions are staged and expectations negotiated. And little by little, this experience generates an emotional void, because nothing is as exhausting as loving someone who never truly opens up. The persona, while protecting, ends up suffocating. It creates an abyss difficult to cross because every attempt to get closer to the real woman runs into resistance, into the fear of showing fragility and imperfections. The consequence? Communication between people who never truly meet, love always being filtered, diluted, and ultimately frustrated. Reflect, how many times have you yourself put on a mask to be accepted? How many times have you loved someone whose essence seemed unattainable? To love authentically, the invitation is clear. Remove the mask, however frightening it may seem. The fear of abandonment is a powerful shadow that haunts many relationships. It's no wonder that, in many situations, it seems that the woman who cries out for love the most also becomes the one who leaves first, who creates distance, or who breaks up before the pain arrives. This strategy, fleeing before being left, is a paradox where abandonment becomes a condition for survival. The fear is so great, the pain of losing control so intense, that the impulse is to avoid suffering beforehand. This attitude, naturally, confuses the partner and destroys the possibility of building a secure relationship based on trust and genuine connection. What few realize is that this flight is not an absence of love, but love disguised as fear. It's the unconscious attempt to test the other's commitment, to measure how much the relationship can withstand, to ensure that the pain of abandonment will not be greater than that of fleeing. Psychology reveals that these repeated tests are true emotional shackles. Women who act this way often lack clarity about their own feelings because they live on the edge between the desire to love and the need for self-protection. The cycle closes. The more they flee, the more the partner invests and the tension increases. How would you react if your partner used this tactic? How would you feel your own heart swing between hope and insecurity? The process of loving becomes unstable ground when fear drives choices and true communication is replaced by invisible strategies. Does freeing oneself from this pattern require, above all, the courage to face the internal wounds that generate the fear of abandonment? It's a painful but essential journey for anyone who truly wants to experience full love. Imagine a castle built not with stone, but with invisible walls made of silence, refusals, and emotional defenses. This is the emotional fortress that many women erect around their own hearts to protect themselves from suffering. This psychologically constructed structure is complex. It's a mechanism to avoid showing fragility, to resist criticism and rejections, but it comes at a high cost. It prevents genuine contact and real connection. Inside this fortress, intimacy is fake, because everything that happens is inflated by fears and defenses. Communication between partners becomes a game of fortresses, where both protect and attack each other, creating distance and resentment. The fear of showing vulnerability transforms into a wall that separates, and soon, what should be powerful exchange becomes camouflaged isolation. The problem is that this protection causes as much damage as the original wound. Instead of healing the pain, the fortress keeps it active and latent, draining emotional energy and undermining the possibility of true love. Have you ever found yourself building an emotional wall? Have you ever felt that to be strong, you needed to hide fears and fragilities? This fortress is a shield, yes, but also a prison. Subscribe to the channel and leave a like to get access to more stories like this. Breaking free from this structure requires a great willingness for risk and pain, but it's the path that leads to emotional freedom. It's accepting that vulnerability is not a sign of weakness, but the foundation of any genuine and lasting love.